guys. If you just want to hear about the 6 unit, you can start here, although I think you'll probably be missing some context. So if you haven't listened to part one, I highly suggest you go back and do that now. Thank you for listening. So now we own that building, and my mom's helping buy the furniture and do the decorating, and she goes up with us and stuff. And no, like overall, we're good. He knows this is our thing. I think he was going to do that to help us. He didn't really he didn't want to make it a super generous deal for me, but he didn't want me to lose out on that building if I wanted it. And the fact that we were able to figure out a way to do it without him, I think he's really okay. We actually haven't talked about it.
Good. In the timeline, when did this happen?
Yeah. So I went back to May there real quick. If you remember, bought the waterfront duplex in June and got the processes, everything in place in September. Sometime around then, my husband looks over at me. He's like, it's back on the market.
I was going to say, because I know what's coming.
I was like, what? I'm like, oh, this is his turn to drop something on me. I see. I deserve that. And he's like, it's back on the market.
Oh my gosh.
And some things had changed. So listeners are probably like, okay, Lauren, how did you need $250,000, $300,000 from your dad and now you don't need any? And what happened? Because give me some of that, right? We had that duplex, right? And so the house, I had my first house, I sold it, paid cash for this duplex in 2019. And it was now late 2021. During COVID, we had some issues. One tenant didn't pay for a long time. Well, one tenant got in a domestic and the girlfriend kicked him out, even though she didn't have a lease. So she was a squatter and then she didn't pay for a long time. She finally abandoned it, whatever. It was a whole cluster. The person that replaced her then stopped paying again. So we had listed the place because I was done with it. Like I just, this is the murder one, right? So I was just done dealing with it. COVID was awful. People didn't have to pay rent, whatever. Nothing I could do. It was just frustrating. Luckily, I didn't have a mortgage on it. Thank God. So, so we listed it. We had listed it in May, like just coincidentally, or maybe April. Just totally separate of anything else we had going on, separate from the bed and breakfast, separate from the waterfront duplex, separate from the 6-unit apartment building. And it needed a new roof, even though the roof was only 8 years old. Like it was done poorly, and the one side wasn't paying rent. And I thought, I don't know that I would buy this in the middle of COVID, in the middle of an eviction moratorium with that side not paying. Right. So we pulled it off the market, redid the roof, and she started paying again. She got rental assistance and started paying like in September. So when we first were under contract with my parents on this apartment building, I didn't feel like we could tap the equity that was sitting in that duplex because of the roof situation and the person not paying. Come September, the moratorium's ending. She's paying. The roof is redone. I'm like, I'm wanting to offload this thing, right? And my husband's like, we could do it. We could sell it. And so he calls the realtor, and I'm like, this realtor's going to hate us. Like we kept that thing under contract for 3 weeks. We had 3-week inspection period. Like there's no way. And we just explained to him, much like I just did, what had changed and why it was different this time, because we could tap the equity in that. And we didn't need my parents. And they were the ones that really were the problem before. So we were like, hey, will you accept a contingent offer where we want to do a 1031 exchange? Because our duplex had gone up in value from like 170 to 285, 300, right? And so we're like, well, if we're going to sell and buy, we might as well do a 1031 exchange. And what that means for listeners is we're not paying capital gains now, rolling our capital gains taxes into the purchase of this other place, which would be like, in this case, kind of like borrowing $15,000 from the government. So it was like late September, early October. I think it was early October. I said, we'll list it. Maybe it must have been September. We'll list it. We'll sell it by Thanksgiving, and then we'll close on the purchase of this 6-unit apartment building by Christmas. And the realtor was like, all right, I'll ask him, but I don't think he's going to want to take it off the market for that long. But he did. He accepted it. There were kind of two differences in the deal. One was there's a rate adjustment at 5 years, and the balloon is 7 years, not 10.
Ah, interesting.
Because they're like in their 80s, and I think they realized that was a bad idea. So So they were still willing, basically the same deal, but they were willing to have this contingent sale. And so we listed the duplex too high. I I let my husband pick the price, and we listed it too high. And so we ended up accepting a cash offer for 285, which allowed us to close before Thanksgiving. And then that money went to the qualified intermediary. It doesn't go to us because it wasn't a 1031 exchange. And then the title company and the 1031 QI, they got together and got the documents, and we ended up closing on December like 22nd was the close date. So we ended up buying that apartment building that we were under
That
contract with my parents in like June. We bought it in
that is
December.
amazing. That is amazing. I think what's great about it is that you had gone through process and then it came back on the market. Yeah, just crazy. I'm actually curious now. I have never gone through a 1031 tax exchange. So just out of curiosity, this was your first 1031 exchange as well, correct?
Yes.
What was that timeline like? Did you had to identify, so you already had your property identified, right? Because you knew you're gonna go into this new
Mm-hmm.
one. Is there like 45 days before, like you there's a certain timeline you have to get that one under contract, or is that not the case?
Yeah. So when you close on the property you're relinquishing, the sale, right, the one you're selling, there
Hmm.
is a time period where you have to identify, I think it's 45 days and up to 10 properties to identify which ones you might purchase. And then you have, I think it's 120 total days or the next tax day, right? So it's like 120 days from there or April 15th, whichever comes first. You have to close on one of those 10 properties or you get your money and you lose what you paid the qualified intermediary, right? So we didn't have to deal with that. It feels like cheating a little bit because we were selling and buying. So all we did was
Hmm.
identify the lot and the apartment building, and then we closed on the lot and the apartment building. So
Right.
we already had it under contract when we sold that first duplex.
Got it. Got it. And then in working with that intermediary, did the title company handle that?
The title company and the intermediary were terrible. I mean, they
Oh,
it was
oh,
not smooth. I don't know. I really can't even say. I'm assuming there was more that I was supposed to do, but I did kind of assume for the fee that you're paying the qualified intermediary. I know they're holding the money, but I thought they would also be advising me and talking to the title company more often. The title company was also very beholden to the seller of the apartment building.
yeah, previous relationship, sure,
Tons. And so I don't think she cared to get my side of it right. And I'm not really trying to drag her. I
sure.
just feel like probably human nature was to pay a lot more attention to his stuff being right than mine.
I that's interesting, and I just there's a few different things like this, like working with the title company, or like for instance working with my lender, working with my insurance agent. I mean, some of those relationships that I've built, it's one of those things where like I've used the same the same title company for the last gosh, six sales that I've done. And so it's so fluid, and it runs so smooth because we're just familiar. And it's just like, it's great when you build that relationship. Now, you know, sometimes filing fees and things like that, maybe I'm paying too much to the title company sometimes, but in my opinion, it makes it so much smoother. I know like some people go through insurance brokers and they'll shop around to whatever insurance companies out there to get the best possible rate on the premiums, for the same coverages. But for me, I like having that relationship where I know I can just make a phone call and it's done, and I don't need
Yes.
to worry about stuff. So
Right. And we have that here.
yeah.
We have a lawyer who does the closings of our sales. Well, she's done two of my sales. And she also reviewed the documents for this 1031 exchange and our mortgage documents, remember,
Oh,
because the
nice.
seller holds our mortgage.
Yep.
And so she reviewed that. I paid her like $250 for the review or something. But so we sat in her office for closing. We did a remote close to go over everything with her because I felt more comfortable with her. I have a insurance broker as well. I go through her every time I can. I didn't recently on one thing because the renewal was $10,000. Like it had been like on this house, the insurance had been 5 and the renewal was 10.
Sure.
And so I shopped it myself and got it for 3,500. So she doesn't begrudge me that at all. She's like, I can't touch that. I can't, like, that's $6,500. And
Sure.
she's a friend also. Like
Yep.
she, my former massage therapist, I met her. They're dating, and that's how I met her. And we're going to their wedding coming up. Like we have a
Oh,
true relationship with her.
yeah. Yeah.
So, and him for that matter. Like we're
Yep.
friends. But yeah, I can call her in a pinch, right? And I had to do that here because I didn't think of it. Normally, the title company's like, hey, do you have your insurance documents? It was like 2 days before close, and I'm like, oh my god, we don't have insurance. Like she had gotten quotes, but we
Right.
hadn't gone through the process of binding it yet. And
Yep.
so there were just some oh shit moments
Yep.
that we were able to kind of work around. And the other problem, which really bothered me about the title company, and this is the last thing I'll say about them, is our closing date was like December 22nd or December 23rd on our contract.
Oh my gosh.
And
Christmas
and
time.
yes, well, originally we were going to do it on December 31st, but we were out of town that week. We were going on a cruise, a makeup cruise from COVID times. And there was no problem with that, right? And remember, we went under contract like in September, right? And this is December. They told us the week before that they close on like the 20th for Christmas. I'm like, guys, you couldn't have mentioned this like even 1 month ago, never mind 3. So
Right.
that was super frustrating. So then that became this like whole thing. And they actually closed, I can't remember if it was the lot or the bill. I think they closed the building first and then had to wait on the lot for some things or whatever. Like it was really complicated and really messy. And I was just disappointed that a business would take a contract that had a closing date when they knew the office would be closed.
Right.
And they didn't tell us.
Yeah,
So
that's disappointing for sure.
so
Unprofessional.
I thought so, but I promise you they think I'm the worst. Like they think it's like and it's I'm not the best, right? I haven't done this a ton of times. I've never done a 1031 exchange before, and I've never done seller financing before. So I didn't know what to do, and I took for granted that these people, the qualified intermediary that I was paying or the title company who was getting paid to close this, I took for granted that they knew what they were doing, and
Right.
I didn't.
Right.
And I don't know that any of us really knew, but we got through it. And
We got
so,
through it.
yeah, so we closed on that in December, and
Now
we've
I yeah, say now I have some questions about you had people living there and you had to have some communication with them, right?
yeah, this is this
How did
is
that go down?
this is hard. I mean, we're vacation rental people now. We just are. That's what I like. My tent, like the tenants, especially in like on the murder street, like man, they didn't like me, and I was
The
super
murder
nice to them.
street. The murder street.
I
That's
know. Well, I've always referred to it by the street name, but nobody will know what that means. So I've just liked, the one side was super nice, paid all through COVID, super kind, not a problem, right? The other side it was a huge problem, and I just, especially, she was very adversarial to me about literally like just literally everything. And I think she felt like probably always I was trying to pull one over on her, and she goes into probably every relationship and every conversation that she has very defensively. And I didn't like that. Like when we were listing it, for example, she would say things like, we can't have strangers, and I can't have strangers in my house because of COVID. And then the roof, which was new, leaked, okay, on her kitchen ceiling. And she calls me and she's like, I haven't been able to entertain because of the kitchen ceiling. And I'm like, so like, are you doing COVID? Or are you not doing COVID? Like what? You're having people over to entertain, but like, we can't have a realtor come in and take pictures. So like that, it was just, she tried to make my life difficult. And just anybody who's a tenant out there, there's no reason for that. Nothing good can come of that. Right. And she was a month to month tenant. And I'm like, you're really playing with fire here. You didn't pay for 6 months and you're month to month, and this moratorium's ending, and you're being very adversarial, and you're $200, $300 under market rent. In every communication I had with her, I was just dripping with empathy, right? Because her life is hard. If this is how she's dealing with everyone around her, her life is very hard. But so I didn't have a great experience with those long-term tenants. I did with the older couple, right? And then he died. And then I was with these people, and that was awful. The long-term tenants at the waterfront duplex, they're super cool. We spend a lot of time there. So, we're like buds, kind of like neighbors. But overall, what we're passionate about is giving people a beautiful place to stay for vacations and things like that. We want to have beautiful yards. I want to be incentivized to paint and maintain. And I have all my systems and processes in place, and I'm just better at it. I'm just better at being a host than a landlord.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah, you know where this is going. There's 6 people living in this building, and we spent a lot of time already talking about when season is. And it's January. And we closed and it was late December. And our thinking was this, because of how thin the margins are with what we paid. Like I said, it pays for itself as a totally long-term building. It's not, and you're like, okay, Lauren, but you could have negotiated the price. But like, this dude was not negotiating the price. Like, it was on the market from May to September because he wouldn't negotiate the price. Right. So we kind of had to pay that to get it. And we love vacation renting. So we did choose to take over 3 of the 6 units. There's 3 2-bedrooms and 3 1-bedrooms. And we've decided to take over the 3 2-bedroom places. And it was not an easy decision. I don't think anybody likes the idea of asking someone to move.
right, right. If those people that are there long term, if they do move out or whatever, would you then immediately kind of convert those over to short term then?
Absolutely.
That's the plan? Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. Yes. But there was a method to it. We wanted the 2-bedroom units, number 1. Number 2, the way that the building is, the other 3 are what sees the yard. And so we kind of punted on the yard remodel by leaving those 3 how they are. And as I mentioned, we've spent a lot of money on yards lately. So whenever those go, we will flip. I mean, assuming these first 3 go well. If these don't
Mhm.
book for some reason, I mean, I can't imagine they will. It's a tourist town. It's an island. I think they will book, but this also gives us a chance to dip our toes into that. And we also didn't want to be the people that kicked 6 people out of their homes. We really didn't.
Sure.
I wasn't in love with being, the person to ask 3 people to move.
Right.
But we did make that decision. It really was the right business decision, and it's what we're passionate about. And so we did, on December 31st, give them 30 days notice because they were all month-to-month tenants.
Right
That was
before
when we
New
got back
Year's.
from the cruise. It was when we got back from the cruise. My plan was to do it before the cruise because it seemed kind of hokey to introduce myself to them. Hey, I'm your landlord. And I gave him my uncle's number, right? In case something happened while we were on the cruise. It seemed kind of hokey to do that and then a week later give him notice. And we actually asked the realtor to ask the seller to give him notice way early on, but he wouldn't even ask. So we wanted them to have notice in like November, right, for the end of December, but it
Right.
didn't work that way. So anyways, so we gave notice on December 31st, and one person responded and was like,
They were like, "Oh,
not,
sure, no problem."
yeah. They're like, great, perfect. I love moving. No, she was like, I have to quit my job and move home now. I was like, oh my God. And one person didn't respond, also didn't pay January rent. And one person was like, okay, no problem. I'll be out by then, if not before, whatever. And then he ended up begging to stay. I'm like, ugh. After he was really mean to me via text. I'm like, dude, it doesn't work like that. So actually we did. We gave him an extra 15 days. The girl who said she had to like quit her job and move home, we gave her an extra 10 days that she asked for. The other one didn't communicate at all. So we stuck to the January 31st. Like I said, she didn't pay January. We went up there and had to, put notice on the door. I actually had a conversation with her. And then she did end up paying rent for January, and she was out 30th.
I would say the one guy, he had to be out this week, right?
Yeah. Yep. He had to be out on the 15th. And so he was out. It was fine. The first person, the one who at first, didn't respond. And so I put these notices on the door, like the pay or quit, whatever. And I put them on there. Then I went to go measure the other guy's unit because it's kind of a weird shape and I needed to know for furniture. I'd given him proper notice, everything. And then I hear her moving around upstairs, and I go back up there, and the notices are off the door. So I knocked and I talked to her, and I was like, "Hey, were you surprised to see these?" She's like, "No, there's rumors." I'm like, "Okay, what about my emails and voicemails?" I was like, "Well, do you want to do anything about rent?" And she was like, "I need to look into the legalities." I was like, "Okay."
Oh, she pulled
And
that
then,
card, huh?
oh yeah, yeah. Well, she paid. She literally, this was Saturday. She paid Monday. Like it wasn't a huge deal. The other girl, the one who said, "Oh, I have to move home, whatever." Now she told me she didn't have a lease with me. That it was with the seller. She used his name. Blah blah blah. It's not with me. And look at you actually have to give me notice by certified mail. Email doesn't count. I was like, the certified mail is on its way. Just don't worry about like it's on the way. I talked to my lawyer, but she ended up finding a place to live. She was the first one to find a place to live, and like is still on the island, like still working. So yeah, so they got out January 30th, February 6th, and February 15th. We had my mom's painter go up there February 14th. And so the week of February 14th was painting the inside of all of the units, kind of rolling into it because the one guy wasn't out till the 15th, but painting all of the units, and he's pressure washing the outside and like doing some touch up on the outside that week, February 14th to 18th. On the 18th, the washers and dryers are being delivered. On the 19th, the furniture, which we have been gathering painstakingly after work and on weekends for 6 weeks, putting into storage units, that furniture is being moved up on February 19th. And then we have the security cameras are being installed on the 19th. That's our guy from down here as well. On the 20th, our cleaner from down here at the bed and breakfast and the other duplex, she is going up there to interview and hire cleaners and train them. And then we have the week of the 21st of February to get it ready to rent. So it's kind
That's
of a
exciting.
whirlwind.
That's
Yeah,
exciting. Well,
it's
and so,
exciting.
so you'll have three ready for season,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
we're missing January and February, which are huge. Like February has been the biggest month we've ever had at our other units. So it hurts to miss February, but I felt like I had to give these people the extra 10 and 15 days that they asked for. Like I felt like it was the least I could do.
doesn't season, but season would still go through April and May, right? I mean, you'll
It
still be able to
should. It should.
hopefully be able to.
We actually had through July last year. So
Oh,
we're hoping to
okay.
catch that. Our fear was if we didn't make this action now and one or two of these people leave in like August, that's
Yeah,
terrible.
right. You
That would
miss a
be very,
full.
very
Yeah,
painful. So we felt like we had to hit season. We were going to just do two. And then we thought, while we're doing two, let's do a third. We figured all of these people who were young and employable would land on their feet. And it seems like they have. It wasn't an easy decision, but I think it's the right business decision. And it's the right thing for my well-being. And this is the thing, how those three people behaved and communicated with me. I thought, man, I don't know that I would have wanted them to be my tenants anyways, so.
yeah. Well, listening to this, you really have inspired me to take a closer look at short-term rentals. All my rentals are long-term, and you get the systems in place like you have, and you start to automate the process. I don't know. It sounds like something I may want to entertain. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean it's hard. There's ethical things to it, right? Like, taking a place that could be a long-term tenant's place and making it, a place for vacations. I feel pretty good about it in the sense that we bought a bed and breakfast, right? So that was already short term. The 6 unit that we just bought, it was a hotel at one point in its history. So, I don't know if I just am justifying that to myself so I don't feel bad about it or whatever, but for the most part, we haven't taken a lot of long-term rentals and made them short-term rentals, and people, there's definitely a demand for it, especially here in Florida, and people they're so happy. They're like, wow, you've done a lot of work here. I'm like, yes, I have. Thank you for noticing. I do a lot, and they're always so complimentary. I haven't had anybody be really mean. I haven't had anybody break anything. I haven't had anybody parties. I mean, a couple people threw up or whatever, but I mean, like nothing too insane. It's been a really rewarding experience,
That's
much
great.
more
Well,
rewarding than any of those long-term relationships
sure.
I've been in.
What's your you gonna take the foot off the gas anytime soon? Like, what's your plan? Are you gonna scoop up another building or what?
The plan, I was actually like looking at numbers in preparation for this conversation, and maybe this is kind of a good way to end. The 6 unit, I think it'll net about $88,000 The bed and breakfast is harder to tell because we don't know what the main house would do, but would cash flow, probably as is, even with like just renting the bottom and us being here most of the time, it cash flows about 15,000. The other duplex, if when those people leave, we do make the other one short term as well, it will cash flow, eh, probably only like 10 or 20,000, but it'll pay for itself and we can keep a boat there. And, so all in all, we're talking about, a cash flow of between 100 and $150,000, if they're all short-term rentals. And that's more than we need to live on. So it means that even with our current breakdown of short-term and long-term rentals, I am work optional, which is cool.
Nice.
I may make that a reality and not have a full-time job here pretty soon. My husband is an owner of an engineering firm, and I think he may start taking Fridays off or something. It's start working part-time. It decreases salary and everything like that. But we're at a point where we want to see how things land, right? Let's see how these three go. Let's see what goes on with these other three, or the other half of the duplex, the waterfront duplex. And let's see how things go. This is, from a financial perspective, this is enough. It's enough to pay for ourselves. And we have enough in our retirement accounts to have enough to take care of, once we're in retirement, any unexpected expenses then. So we'll see. My mom does not think we'll stop. I've told her I'm done. Like, having a full-time job and managing, it's basically 12 doors, right? Except we have to live in one of them, but we move around. So I am managing all of these, if you include the camper, right? Which I am managing. So it's a lot. It's a lot right now. Under these current conditions, I will not do another one. I have no plans to do another one.
Okay. Well, now we have you on record. So once you have the next one under contract, we're going to go back and listen to this.
Well, if I do, I will, like, the day after I go under contract on that, I will give notice at my job. Like, mark my words. Like, that will happen. This is about what we can handle with 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah. No, it is interesting because, I've had that discussion with a friend of mine, and she says, well, when are you done? And I'm like, I don't know if I'd ever be done. I don't know. It's hard for me. It's just, it's kind of the thrill of the game. It's always looking for that the next good deal.
Yeah, but I know. I know. I love this. Like, I love having my podcast. Yep. I love doing like my spaces every Wednesday night with my guy friends. Like, I'm going to FinCon this year. You're going to be there?
Absolutely. I already got my ticket.
Me too. It's only 2 hours for me. So, I'm getting really passionate about the Adulting is Easy stuff. And I have the vacation rentals, and that is a little bit of a job. So even if I were to not buy another one, there's still work to be done. And there's still, I think I could be really fulfilled that way. But we'll see. My mom's money is on absolutely not. Like, you bought a bed and breakfast in 2020, you bought a duplex in 2021, you bought a 6-unit in 2021. Like, you're not done, but we'll see. I like to think I'm done. I always said if I had enough, I'd stop. So here I am. We're 29 and 32, and it should be enough.
Oh, you guys are just babies. I got 10 years on you. Well, yeah, I suppose that that I guess is a good note to kind of wrap up. Thank you so much for letting me kind of crash your podcast party.
Thank you so much, Chris, for interviewing me. It feels so egotistical to get interviewed on my own podcast, but I just feel some people have been asking me about it, and I thought, what better way to do it than actually talk about it on here? Before we wrap up, why don't you tell people how to get in touch with you, and then I'll do my little normal wrap.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I appreciate it. So you can always find me on Twitter. Again, my name is Chris, and it's Money Heavy Metal on Twitter. My blog is actually called Heavy Metal Money. You can find me at heavymetal.money. Been blogging on there for a few years, talking all about just ways that you can save, spend, invest. It really kind of follows my single divorced dad's journey to financial independence. And I have a freshly launched, we're talking just a couple weeks in, freshly launched YouTube channel. You can go ahead and find that at Heavy Metal Money as well. And again, quick videos on saving, spending, investing, all that stuff. I just launched one today talking about just how easy it is to gift a 529 plan to someone else's kid. And it's a really fun thing to do. So again, thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being on here. And everybody, you can follow me on Twitter at Adulting is Easy. I'm also on Facebook. You can email me at realadultingiseasy@gmail.com or show support at patreon.com/adultingiseasy. Don't forget to join the Wealth Wednesday Twitter Spaces. As of right now, it's early 2022. We're doing them every Wednesday at 9 o'clock Eastern. We've covered real estate, tokenized real estate, crypto, quitting your 9 to 5, increasing your income, and so much more. Thanks again for listening, everybody. Hopefully, Chris and I have made adulting a little easier for you.